Good morning, guys. Let's take this to the next step. What we've seen so far is that if you take the circumference and you divide it by the diameter, you're going to get pi. I'll say that again because it worked here as well. If you take the circumference and you divide it by the diameter, you're going to get pi. I'll say that one more time because it worked here as well. If you take the circumference and you divide it by the diameter, you're going to get pi. So let's write down exactly what I just said. If you take the circumference and you divide it by the diameter, you're going to get pi. Now when we write it down in symbols like this, you're going to see that we have an equal sign, and that's a good thing for us because we have a lot of experience with these types of expressions. So if it's got an equal sign, that means we can follow the rules of solving equations. Now we've got an operation right here. This operation means divide. So if I do the opposite of dividing by d, well, the opposite of dividing by d is multiplying by d. And what I do to one side, I have to do to the other side. The divide by d and the multiply by d are inverses of each other, so they cancel each other out. And I'm left with circumference equals, let me do the commutative law right here, diameter times pi, which just goes to show us that if we want to find out what the circumference of a circle is, we don't necessarily have to take out a ruler or a tape measure or anything like that. If we know the diameter of it, all we have to do is take that diameter and multiply it by pi, and it'll give us our circumference. Let's put a box around that because that can be one of our formulas that we use. Now we can manipulate this formula even further and isolate the variable d for diameter. Watch this. Just rewriting it right there. But now we can see that there's an operation right here. There's an invisible multiplication sign. So the opposite of multiplying by pi is dividing by pi. And what I do to one side, I have to do to the other side. Now the multiply by pi and the divide by pi are inverses of each other, so they're going to cancel each other out. And you're left with circumference divided by pi equals diameter. So there's another formula. If we want to know what the diameter is, we don't necessarily have to take out a ruler or a tape measure. If we know the circumference of that circle, all we have to do is divide it by pi, and it'll give us the diameter. Actually, let me stick with that because I printed it up. So this is where I'm going to have you practice a little bit of these formulas that we've just kind of discovered. Okay, this one right here for circumference, and this one right here for diameter. And this homework assignment's got 6 questions. And what I'd like you guys to do is I'd like you to follow that 3-step process that we used to use in the algebra unit. So the first thing I'd like you to do is I'd like you to write down the rule, and then I want you to show me the substitution, that's step 2, and then I want you to give me the answer, which is step 3. So for example, number 1 says, what will the circumference be if the diameter is 25 centimeters? Alright, so it doesn't matter which one of these 2 formulas that we use. Let's find out what we're given. It looks like we're given the diameter. Okay, the diameter is 25. So it might be useful to use this one right here. C equals d times pi. So if I go over here and I write down C equals d times pi, that is step number 1. That is writing the rule. Step number 2 is using substitution. So that 25 right here has to go in the place of one of the variables, either the c or the d. In this case, it's giving us the diameter, so we're going to put it in the 25 in the place of d. C equals 25 times pi. Step number 3 is doing the arithmetic and giving me the answer. So over here, whatever 25 times pi is, you're going to put that number right over here.